Welcome to Spain, Poco a Poco.
Welcome. Today we're going to talk about flamenco, which is very exciting, the beautiful art of the Spanish dancing and other elements. So
Lots of
let's
elements.
lots of elements. So let's get going. Where do you want to start?
Well, I guess we should start talking about some of the history that people may not know,
hmm
and I know I didn't know 2 days ago. So
I did
here
not
we go.
either. So good place to
Just
start. Go ahead.
yeah, just so you know, audience, we are doing our research to provide more factual based information
hmm
for you.
And it's fascinating, really. We're learning a
It
lot.
really is.
Yeah.
Um, well, what I have learned is that, which I did not know, is that it some. I mean, they say it can trace its
History.
origins, history
hmm
back to the 15th century in Andalusia, which I
hmm
know in Spain they talk about that Andalusia is where you want to go if you want to see the real flamenco, right? That's like the
hmm
region of flamenco.
And that's why.
That's why. Makes sense.
It does make sense. So back in that era in the Andalusia area, the people living there was we had the Spanish and the Moors and the Gypsies and the Jewish and the Christians, and all of that mix was something that brought together the origins of the flamenco dancing. Which I think is really interesting. It's a big mix of different cultures. And at that particular moment was the Spanish Inquisition. So there was a lot of turmoil in that
hmm
area, and the Moors were being pushed out. So including in the amount of cultures that were there was this spirit of sort of desperation, struggle, hope, and pride, and of course, probably still at that time, the desire for sort of a party and a fiesta needed in conjunction with all of that. So I think
Right.
it's a very interesting origin story, which is probably the origin story of a lot of different musical from
Right.
different countries, but that's what was happening here, and that is the origin of flamenco.
I mean, music is a release from pain, right? That's where we go to
Absolutely.
concerts is to escape from our life. And then when you listen to, the soul musics, and this
hmm
it was very much the soul music of Spain, right? This is
Absolutely.
people singing about their pain, whether it's the farm owner or the government or the invaders or whoever is controlling people's lives. It really comes out in this. And I don't know about you, but I was lucky enough to have seen a flamenco show, and you really do see that they really emote this huge amount of pain and passion when they sing. It
That
is a
must be
lot.
amazing. Yeah, I've seen flamenco, but I haven't gone to a show like you have. So I think that is something that I would love to do. I think because it is an experience, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It really
Yeah.
is.
And I think so originally flamenco or whatever they were calling it then was just singing unaccompanied by anything. And then it emerged with guitar and then rhythmic clapping, feet stomping and the dancing and just the exuberance of it. So it was a
And
progression as well.
the flourish and flair, because I mean the dancing, it's about the ruffles flying and the turning and the stomping, right? and the
Yes,
and the banging
yes,
of
for
the
sure.
guitar as well, right? Not just the strumming but the hitting of the guitar, lots of noise.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that's something that I mean, some of that might have it just the progression of it just got maybe more and more exciting as time
Yeah.
went on. And then, so what about the name flamenco? So that we're not 100% sure where that's coming from, but you
we've
found an
we've
interesting one.
we've one I'm going to go with, and you found a different one, so I'll tell mine, which I think is so much more romantic.
I like yours better, but we will give you both just to cover our bases.
Exactly. And so one of the theories suggests that the name is of Arabic origin, which the Moors were still here and being what's the word I'm looking for, excommunicated out of Spain, being
hmm
removed from Spain, right?
Yes.
Um, but they think it's taken from the words falag mengul, which means
hmm
peasant in flight or fugitive peasant, which I think is so beautiful to think, as we were talking about music being an escape, that there's this peasant
hmm
taking flight out of their pain.
I think that one makes so much more sense than the other one, which is that it comes from the Flemish word flamande, which at the time it was a Flemish kingdom of Carlos the First here in that part of Spain. So there was a Flemish element to that. And flamande obviously sounds a lot more like flamenco, but I do still
Right.
prefer your description that you found because I think it does explain the elements of flamenco that we've already sort of touched on, I think, which I like.
And right, and when I think of the Flemish, I don't think of heart pounding, stomping music. So I'm gonna go with
So collectively here at our Spain Poco a Poco, we're going with
the
the
Arabic
fleeing peasant,
Moorish.
the peasant in flight one.
Yes, peasant in flight. I love it.
Absolutely, yeah. So in flamenco, there are different music styles called palos, which loosely translates as branches like of a tree. And there are over 50 different styles of flamenco, which I'm not surprised. I don't know how they are connected and whether it's like you have one, one song and dance that's one and one another, or whether they're all mixed into one
Like
that you
one
go see.
show,
Yeah, I
yeah.
have no idea, but it
Or
makes
if we
sense there
go
would
to
be
different
those.
regions, it's completely different. Or if a different town, I
Yeah.
don't know. I've only seen one show,
Yeah, and
so
that would also make sense. The regions, obviously, I mean, that they're going to vary, so that would totally make sense if there were different styles based on the regions. I think as
right,
well. I mean, it's a very complicated and elaborate art form, so I think it would make sense that it varies, and maybe some of those things in certain places come together as
right,
well to
right.
create a new art form. So
A new
that's another
from
50
our new
plus,
style, or what? Right.
right?
And there's like four elements to like the performance, right? So there's the cante, which is the singing, and the toku. I don't know how you
Toque,
pronounce it. You're
toque, I
better at
think. Or
toque.
I think it's toque.
That's the actual flamenco guitar playing, and
Mm-hmm.
then you have the baile, which is the dance. And
Mm-hmm.
my favorite word out of this research, which is halio, which basically means hell raising. And
Oh, that's so appropriate. I love
isn't that a great
it.
word? Halio.
That is definitely the feeling and the of the flamenco. I think it's all coming down to, even though the jaleo is like just one element, that is probably the element that is bringing all of them together, don't you
All
think?
of them, yes, I think
Yeah.
so, because there is, I mean, there's screaming and the scream, and I mean this in a nice way. It's like moaning, the singing, the pain that's coming out, the passion, so it's,
Mm-hmm.
you feel like they're in hell. They're expressing their hell.
They're hell raising. Yep. And
Yes,
you
they
got the
are.
foot stomping and the clapping, and then you got the ole. So you just the whole like getting. I mean, and when you're in the environment with a performance, is it one of those things where the audience is also sort of getting in on it, or is it you just
Well,
watching?
Well, was my experience. You could tell who the tourists were and then the people who go regularly. Because the
Oh,
people who
okay.
went regularly were much more involved and cheering much more, and they were feeling the passion more.
Mm,
Where I went a year ago, only had lived here, not even quite a year yet when we went,
yeah.
and so we were the tourists taking it all in,
Mm-hmm.
So
So it
we
probably
were
depends on where you see it, I would imagine. If you're in the environment and it's in your town and it's in your town square and it's all the people that are there, I would imagine there's a much more included kind of environment of the whole thing, probably.
right. I mean, and where I went, I mean, there was tourists, but it wasn't like a tourist spot, I would say. I mean, there
Mm-hmm.
was definitely people that were there for the art form, and you could see there were other musicians in the audience that might perform in other places. There was a lot of support going
Right.
on that I saw, which was really nice too. People
Yeah.
supporting
Yeah.
other musicians, and that, and when they're on stage, like all the musicians are on stage and at the place that I went, even if they're not performing. So it was kind of like this, and they
Right.
get up when they're performing and they sit down when they're not. So that it
Yeah.
was very supportive environment.
I like that. I'm always really uncomfortable when I go see a band play that's like very energetic and everyone's just sitting in their seats. I find it incredibly uncomfortable because you
Right.
feel like you should be mirroring the energy of the person performing, right? But if that's not
Right.
the environment of the crowd, it gets, to me it gets very uncomfortable. So
Right.
you would want to get up and be like, hell
I
raised,
mean,
right? A little with
yeah,
them.
people weren't getting up, but there was the people who you could tell their applause, and there
Mhm.
were people shouting the ole and expressing themselves in the audience. But it wasn't
Yeah.
like being at a rock concert where
There you go.
you're up in
Yeah.
the air with lighting your lighters that no one does anymore, right?
So if you go and see flamenco, get on board.
Get on
Bring your
board.
energy with you.
Yeah.
So speaking of energy, I think this is quite fun. The polka dots on the flamenco dresses, and if you've never seen a flamenco dance in person, you've definitely seen the dresses, right?
Right.
And they're just gorgeous, like you said, flowing and whooshing, and they've got the polka dots, which is actually comes from a like a back in the day they would sew little circular mirrors on their dresses to ward off bad spirits.
And who was this? Was
The Roma,
the Roma? That's
yeah,
also known as the
that
Gypsies, right?
back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
long time ago. So initially, when they were doing these dances, they had these mirrors, on the dresses, and I think that's really
Mm-hmm.
pretty. And so I don't know when that changed, but that kind of like merged into just like let's just print the dots on the on the dresses.
Probably a seamstress was sick of getting cut by glass.
Probably, and also maybe there aren't any bad spirits anymore. Maybe we're all
Right.
good. Don't need to worry about that. So we'll just make it pretty. So
And
and they are pretty.
they're very pretty, and with the fringe and the shawls, it's it's like that kind of whole romantic image you kind of think of Spain, those women, the flamenco dancers, right? And
Yeah.
then they have these shoes, which they're like dance shoes. You don't think much of them, but what I found out is the wooden heels actually have nails in them, so that's what's giving the sound. It's not like a tap shoe. It's not just.
I thought it would be just like they put metal, like a tap shoe, like they just put metal on the bottom of the shoe to make it give that sound. But they're actually
They
putting
have
nails in.
they have nails in them, and I have a daughter in dance. I've had daughters in dance for years, and tap shoes give more of a click. They wouldn't give you that stop, so I mean that would make sense.
So it's a different sound you're getting when you put the nails in. That's, like you said, more of a stomp than that more of a high pitched tap click.
Tap click, yeah.
And they're still doing it that way, which I think is really cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah, I like that. And the first time that flamenco was mentioned in literature was in 1774 in a book by Jose Cadalso called Cartas Marruecas.
Do you want me to say it with my Spanish accent?
Go for it. Eats it.
Cartas Marruecas by Jose Cadalso.
Marruecas.
Marruecas.
There you go.
Cartas Marruecas by Jose Cadalso.
Unfortunately, because my husband is Moroccan, I've had to learn that word in Spanish, and I'm like, could you just be from somewhere else? Because this is the hardest word. Like, there's just certain words that are really hard to get your tongue around, and Morocco is one of those. So, yes.
I will also say American is too. Like to say you're American is Estados Unidense, right? Like it's to say you're American. No, that's United
that's America.
States.
Okay, United
Right.
States. Okay, well, just say Americano. Isn't that easier? At least you got options.
No, you don't say that here. No,
but you can.
Yeah, that's a different Poco. Let's stay on track.
We'll get back to that. Clearly, we have to have that discussion. Anyway, I think are there any other facts we have from the flamenco? I think that sort of covers
when you go to a flamenco show, they're performed in a place called the tableau, and the tableau also means the stage, which is wood.
Okay.
Obviously, you need to be wood to get this. And I went to a place called Palo Santo Tableau, so that means rosewood. So I'm hoping the stage was made out of rosewood and wasn't some misnomer. But they're all tableaus, and
that was a proper stage and a proper performance.
It was a proper performance venue. Yeah. It was in the Cabagnal district in this kind of like four-walled space. It had a little bar and stuff. Like some of them will have like, a dinner show, but that tends to be, I think, more touristy. This one just had like a bar and you could get some popcorn, chips, and jamons and cheeses. Go figure.
Jamon and queso.
Jamon and queso, and watch the show. But it wasn't like a meal show, right? It was like you can get some snacks and really enjoy it. And I will say that later, this summer I'm taking the girls down to Andalusia in the end of July, so we may go see a flamenco show there. And if so, I will maybe be able to report on a difference if I noticed one. I'm not...
perfect. Different, and who knows? It might be a regional thing, or you might just have gone to see a different version, a different palos in a different area that also is here. Like, so we still won't be none the wiser really until we see a lot of them. So there's there's a goal. So yeah, our goal is to see lots and lots and lots of more flamenco so that we can get more educated in it.
More educated and lots more of Spain, so we can become more ensconced in the life here.
Perfect. Well, I think that's our little Poco a Poco on flamenco. I hope you enjoyed it.
Hope you did. Next episode. See you later.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Our Spain Poco a Poco. Since you love us so much, please do go on to our social media and follow us and like us and subscribe where you're listening, because it really does help us to grow and stick around and do what we are very much enjoying doing.
And, give us a shout out on the social medias. Give us a comment on what you would like to hear us talk about. I mean, we like to hear ourselves speak, but we do want to make this, informative for our listeners.
Absolutely, yeah. You can comment on one of our posts, or you can send us a message through our Spain Facebook page or Instagram. So we would love to hear from you.
Yes, we would. Till the next episode.
Bye.